Thank you for being here tonight. I'm Robin Zickman with Decoding Dyslexia Idaho, and this is the Microsoft Assistive Technology webinar with Rachel out of Decoding Dyslexia Minnesota. Rachel is the Executive Director for Decoding Dyslexia Minnesota, which is also a nonprofit. She is an advocate for students with learning disabilities. She's been in this role for over 7 years, working with policymakers to improve education for students with dyslexia and their teachers. She also serves on the Higher Ed Literacy Partnership. She works with Microsoft Education as an assistive technology specialist in the field of dyslexia and learning differences, helping to train educators and students to use assistive technology to remove those barriers and empower students to reach their full potential. So Rachel, thank you so much for being here tonight. I also want to mention that we have Nick Stallings here with us. He's local here to Idaho. He is with the University of Idaho and supports the Idaho Assistive Technology Project. And he'll be available to take questions about how you can access the resources locally here in Idaho, and also request assistive technology evaluations for your kiddos that might need that support in our public schools. So we will be asking everybody to remain on mute, and I will be monitoring the chat box. Rachel will take some breaks throughout to take questions as we move along and kind of have this be an interactive webinar. I think that's about it. Thank you, Rachel.
All right. Thanks for the introduction. And again, I'm Rachel Berger. I am the Learning Disability Assistive Tech Specialist at Microsoft Education in the field of dyslexia and learning disabilities. And you guys have already heard plenty about me from Robin. So I just want to call your attention to my email address here on this lead slide. If you have any questions or need any help, or even have an awesome story to share after trying these tools, please send me an email. Don't hesitate to reach out. And then for those of you that are Twitter fans, you can follow me on Twitter. You can tweet out this presentation if you're feeling compelled to do so. So that's my Twitter. It looks like we have a nice sized group here, about 25-ish people. And so what I would like to know is, I would like to know something that, if you guys want to type into the chat, I want to know what brought you here today. What are you most looking to learn to help your students in terms of assistive technology? And so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'll let you type into the chat. Please don't hesitate to type questions in as you're going along. I'm pretty certain we're going to get to all of them. And I will take a break between our reading before I start writing, and then we'll take another pause shortly after our writing as well. So I'm going to get started with a couple of slides that'll give you a backdrop on these tools and how they get started. But first up is a slide that is very near and dear to my heart. And for those of you that are in education, you've probably seen this before. It's a slide on equality versus equity. We've got two photographs of students who are on the left-hand side. We're trying to see a ball game, but we can't see over the fence entirely. So, so that's the equality. Everyone has the same thing. On the right photograph, we've got different blocks that enable the students to be able to see over the fence to participate in that ball game. So the reason I show this visual, and in terms of accessibility, the reason I'm getting into depth explaining it is I am being inclusive and ensuring that we have accessibility for all. So there's that common misconception out there that equality and equity mean the same thing, or that they can be used interchangeably. They're similar, but the difference between them is crucial, especially when we're talking about our students who learn differently due to dyslexia. Equality encourages access to the same opportunities specific to need. And before we can get to a place of, I think I just messed that up. Because equity encourages access to the same opportunities specific to need. Before we can get to a place of equality, we have to ensure equity. And so today I'm going to show you how the tools that Microsoft has created enable students to receive access to an equitable education, to personalize their learning experience in a way that works best for them, and to gain in their independence, which is something that we all care deeply about. All right, so Microsoft, when it comes to inclusive technology, likes to keep these three things top of mind. It's students and ensuring that they can grow and gain in their independence, empowering all of our educators to engage every single learner, and then from a high level, in terms of schools, wanting to make sure that these are places of equity and inclusion, and that it's top of mind for everyone, from our administrators to our educators and paraprofessionals to the students and even their parents. And so Microsoft started to get really interested in accessibility and ensuring that all students are able to participate in their education more effectively around about the time this survey came out from Scholastic. 2014, 14,000 educators responded, and we learned that our classrooms are vastly different from, say, when you and I were in the classroom. So 3/4 of all educators are reporting that within that gen ed classroom, they have student reading levels that span 4 or more grade levels within one classroom. That might not be such a surprise to those of us in the dyslexia field, because we know that there's varying degrees of grade level reading proficiency happening in each classroom, but that's pretty shocking when you consider an educator who's supposed to ensure that reading proficiency of those students. 3/4 of all classrooms have students with special education needs, whether that's an IEP or a 504, or even just some unique level of need that requires accommodation and modification. And then up to half of all of our classrooms have non-native speakers. So you can see why, given those 3 data points, up to 50% of instructional time can be lost managing those needs, including assistive technology. And yet assistive technology is created to break down barriers and level the playing field. So we need to ensure that it is truly empowering for those reasons. So when talking about assistive technology from a global standpoint, about 1 billion people globally benefit from using assistive technology. But the reality is that everyone can benefit, whether it's a permanent disability, like some of the ones listed in our slide, or a situational requirement. Unmute. Something happened there where I was muted. I'm just going to carry on. I think a situational requirement, like working hands-free, assistive technology benefits many, many individuals. In fact, I would just say everyone. So today we're going to focus on some of the learning disabilities that are more invisible. And disabilities come in many forms, both visible and invisible. Those that our children are experiencing are invisible, but it doesn't make it any less difficult to navigate those, especially when it comes to education. So moving along, I want to tell you about the hackathon that made all of these things possible. In 2015, reading, font, and accessibility and education experts came together at Microsoft to look at the latest science, technology, and education techniques specifically on dyslexia. And they chose that because whether diagnosed and supported or not, dyslexia impacts 17 to 20% of our population's ability to read printed word. And as many of you know, when individuals who are impacted by this aren't supported and given the tools that they need to achieve reading proficiency, the odds are stacked against them in a really dire manner. And so these individuals at Microsoft during the hackathon built tools into OneNote. They won the hackathon, and then they went on to work with educators and students to learn how did these tools really help the individuals that we created them for? And what they found out was not only did they help dyslexic students or students who were struggling with reading, but also students who had focus and attention issues, are non-native speakers, emerging readers, and many more beyond that initial intent. And so what I'm going to do right now is, now that we've laid the backdrop a little bit, we're going to go straight into demonstrating within some of the apps. And I'm going to start out here in OneNote, and I'm going to rely upon my team to let me know if we are not looking at my OneNote notebook, which has a purple ribbon across the top. And so I'm going to assume that we're all good there. All right, for those of you that are—
Rachel, actually, we're not. We're still in the PowerPoint. You're going to want to click share screen again and then select the window that you want to share.
Thank you. All right, so it's during these COVID times, I've used multiple platforms of presenting today, and so my brain is a little bit mush when it comes to what Zoom does versus Teams or GoToWebinar. Thank you. All right, so I'm in my OneNote notebook, and if you will, this is more of a digital binder. Back in the day, we used to carry these things called trapper keepers when I went to school, and we, be weighted down with these in the hallway. Now we just got our laptop, and we can have way more notebooks than a trapper keeper could hold. So you can create a notebook, whether it's for students, whether you're an educator creating that for students, or whether you're just an individual who would like to keep your content in there. OneNote is a great way to keep a variety of different things organized and at your fingertips. So let's talk about this third grade reading example I've got. I'm working with an educator and one of her students to make anything that this student has in the classroom a little bit more accessible, because he is dyslexic. And as a third grader, he's reading at a first grade level. So he needs to do what we call ear reading to consume his content versus sight reading, so that he has the ability to read exactly what his classmates are reading. When we want to load something into the OneNote notebook, we go to the Insert tab and then File. And what File does is it'll pull things from your computer. So if you save something as a Word document or a PDF, you're going to be able to insert it into your notebook. And once that's done, we're going to go to the View tab and then Immersive Reader. And what happens there is you'll notice there's a skin that's covering the page now, and we have a completely different look. So we can go down to the bottom and utilize our text-to-speech function.
The Closet Creature by Kelly Hashway. Bump.
Nick, could you confirm that the sound is playing through there? Because if I recall correctly, I think with Zoom, you may have to enable audio first.
You did. Yep, we're hearing it.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we have this lovely neural text-to-speech voice. First up in terms of personalizing those settings is our voice speed. And again, parents, if you've got students with dyslexia, or I'm sorry, teachers, if you've got students with dyslexia, or parents, if your child has dyslexia, you know that the processing speed of an individual with dyslexia varies from person to person. Some of our dyslexics enjoy having things when they're ear reading at a really high rate of speed, while others can't process things that fast at all. And so again, here's one of the first capabilities you have in personalizing that experience. And then of course there's voice selection. But let's go up here to the right, and this is where the fun begins. We can increase our text sizing. The spacing here just kind of opens everything up. I'm not sure why my device is being picky here. Let's go on. Let's touch screen it. There we go. So we can increase our spacing. You see that we've got a variety of different font sizes. And then we've got background colors. What I like here is that whether it's eye strain, something a very small percentage of the population struggles with called convergence insufficiency, low vision, or simply preference, you have all of these options available to you. And you don't have to prove your need with an IEP or a 504. It's just there, afforded to you. No one else can control and turn off certain things. You just have it all built in at your fingertips. Let's go to our grammar options under this middle icon. So we can break words into syllables with the click of a button.
Bump. Bump. Scratch. Adam opened his eyes.
Okay. We can also have our parts of speech highlighted. So something not right with my mouse pointer today. So I've got to touch it with my touch screen. We've got our nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs we can highlight, and we can show the labels above. Now you'll notice I've got both my nouns and verbs are in a very close color here. And so with this drop down, I can say, let's maybe change that to another color so that I can more easily distinguish. So again, we've got all sorts of options here, and we have the ability to select what works best for us. Now, to reduce my own distractions as I move on to the next page, I'm going to turn these off. And let's go to our reading preferences. So here we've got a full page view. Not everyone prefers to look at the entire page when they're reading. In fact, a lot of emerging readers or struggling readers like to drop down their line focus. And so you could go from 5 lines to 3 lines to 1 line at a time. And all the while, this tool is going to be reading and scrolling the text automatically.
It pulled the covers up to his chin. He stared around his room, searching the darkness.
Okay. One of my absolute favorite tools, if I turn off line focus mode now, is called Picture Dictionary. And Picture Dictionary is something that's created in partnership with Boardmaker. They make the visual images for individuals who have speech and communication disorders. And so these will be familiar with some of the students that are utilizing these. So if I click on a word, I get a photograph that pops up and helps create meaning or helps us to comprehend. And you'll see I got a little speaker here so I can have that sounded out or
Moved.
read aloud, I'm sorry.
Banged. Scary.
Okay, let's see.
Sounds.
What's really amazing is that Boardmaker is adding more photos all the time. So it's almost like every time I open this up, I've got new pictures that pop up, which is really fun and also distracting too when you're the one presenting it. So we also have built-in translator, which is absolutely amazing for so many reasons. So if we go over here to this arrow, I get a drop-down list and I can choose anywhere up to 65 different languages. And then you could choose to translate just a word or the entire document. And so let's go with the entire document. I'm going to close our little pane here so that we can see the screen. And we're going to listen to the Spanish voice.
The closet creature de que ya soy. Golpe. Golpe. Rasguño. Adán abrió los ojos.
Okay, so you hear this lovely neural text-to-speech Spanish voice. Picture Dictionary follows, so we can click on words and have those photographs pop up again to help us comprehend and create meaning. And you'll notice at the top here, I can toggle between both the original version and the Spanish version right here. So that was Immersive Reader built into OneNote. OneNote has a desktop version for those that are using Windows devices or Windows compatible computers. And it also has a free online version. So you can access the web-based version for free. I want to show you the other places as we're continuing along about talking about reading accessibility. I'm going to show you some of the other places Immersive Reader exists, just in case you don't use OneNote. Okay, so Nicholas, I'm doing new share every single time I move my screen. Is that what
I would recommend it. Yeah, it's just keep things square. So if you just hit this share screen, you should see all the windows that you have available.
All right, Sam. Yep, got it. So here I am. We should be looking at Edge browser, and you should see my Zoom screen actually. So I'm going to go ahead to Tween Tribune, and I'm accessing this through Edge browser. Tween Tribune, for those of you who haven't utilized it or heard about it, is a wonderful education-based website with K-12 content on a multitude of topics for students. And I absolutely love it for many reasons for my kids when they're doing homework. It Lexile levels things, but again, I'm not promoting Tween Tribune. I'm here to tell you about immersive reader. So let's get back to that. Up in the toolbar here, you'll see immersive reader, this little icon. And so when I click on that, let's say again, I'm a student and I've got to do some research on mummies. And so I've pulled up my article through Tween Tribune, and I need to reduce my distractions and I need some help with the actual reading of the content. I've clicked on immersive reader, and I could go ahead and just click on read aloud.
How do you mummify a body? You asked us.
Okay, so there we can learn about how we mummify a body. But more importantly, we have all kinds of options here. Just like we did in OneNote, we can change our speed or our voice. We can also change our text preferences. So I'm not sure about you guys, but the text sizing is way too small for me. So let's change that. And I prefer my spacing to be a little bit more open. How about those background colors? And so again, you get the idea. All the same things that we had in OneNote are now here in Edge browser. Again, this is a mainstream internet search, guys. Like, this is crazy. I'm using the internet and now changing it to make it accessible to what my needs are. And what's really amazing is you've also got translator and picture dictionary. So let's see. Let's find a word I can click on and get a photograph. Stays, heart, organs. Look at that. Here I am, mainstream internet search. I'm sorry, here I'm getting distracted again by the photos because it's so cool. So this is Edge browser, Chromium edition. And so if you don't use it and you want to have these accessibility features, this is a reason you should check it out. So one additional place that you can access Immersive Reader and all these wonderful tools is in Word, both the desktop version and the web-based version. So I'm in the web-based version, so this free online version for anyone to access. And just like we did in OneNote, I'm going to go ahead and click on View, and then there's my Immersive Reader icon. So now once this is done syncing, you'll see I have the same look that we had in OneNote, and I can go ahead and push play.
The Amazon rainforest. The Amazon rain.
Sounds the same. Again, really awesome neural text to speech voice, and all the same options up here for personalizing your consumption of content. Okay, so I'm trying to move along because we got so many awesome things we're going to share today. I want to show you one more place that you're going to be able to access Immersive Reader, which is really, really awesome. And this would be your top homework assignment tonight, okay? So we're gonna dip back into my PowerPoint, and I'm gonna show you that via a little video on my slide. And then after that, I'm going to break for some questions. So if you haven't already queued them up, let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so for those of you who haven't heard of it yet, Microsoft has an app in the App Store called Office Lens. This is free for Android and iOS. It also works on an iPad. Let's see what happens. So any textbook, worksheet, Blackboard, print that you'd like to have read, you can snap a photo and then hit the Immersive Reader button. Looks the same as we were just demonstrating.
Would not take the garbage out.
So all of the same tools and features as you saw when we were using Immersive Reader in OneNote and Word and Edge browser. Look at that. I've even got the ability to use background colors and picture dictionary as well as translator.
Amores. Y aunque su papá gritaba y gritaba.
Pretty neat. Okay, so continuing on with Office Lens, I'm going to show you guys a tip and a trick that I learned last spring during our first bout of distance learning. So Office Lens can also be used for worksheets. I have a son who has dysgraphia, and a worksheet like this, especially when it's multiple pages, can be really an arduous task for him. Trying to fit everything in those lines and give more than just a one-word answer or two-word answer, which is common for those who struggle with dyslexia and dysgraphia. Yet at the same rate, if I know many of you parents have probably done the parent as a scribe thing with your dyslexic, dysgraphic children. And so I know that if I ask my son, you know, what are all four oceans? He can tell me, he can rattle them off at the top of his head. So I needed to find a workaround for this worksheet because it was making life difficult. So check this out. We are snapping a photograph with Office Lens. And then we're going up to the right here where there's a large T for text box. Then utilizing the device's dictation feature, we are dictating our answers into that text box and then moving the text box to the appropriate place on top of the essentially photograph of the worksheet. And so you'll see here, there's quite a bit that we're putting into this text box. And in order to make it fit, we can shrink it or enlarge it by using the pincher motion of our fingers. So what's really awesome about this is once you're done with it, you can go ahead and just send it via email to the teacher. So I don't know about your students with dyslexia, but I know my son, a lot of times homework doesn't make it from home to school. And then in distance learning, it was a whole nother thing. It made it a lot easier for us to just go ahead and send things in. So homework assignment number 1 is to get Office Lens and try Immersive Reader. And then I'd say maybe if you have any worksheets, try to do what I did utilizing Office Lens and the text box dictation. Okay, I've got time for a couple questions, so let's hear what you guys have to say.
Well, it looks like that was a well for me. Really, where was Office Lens for my kiddo with dysgraphia? Thank you for sharing that, Rachel. That was amazing. I don't see a lot of questions. We've got some comments in here about what brought them here tonight to join us. A lot of teachers are with. Oh.
Did you say what brought them here today?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that.
I'm sorry. So what's brought it, most of them here today is there's quite a few teachers here that are looking for resources. We've got interest in text-to-speech accommodations. We've got general ed teacher here that is always looking for tools. We also have a lot of parents here with kiddos with dyslexia trying to find ways to help support their kiddos and things that they can take to their teachers in advocating for them. As far as questions go, I don't see that we have. Does Immersive Reader work on Chrome or just on Edge?
No, it works on Chrome as well. Depending on how you're utilizing it. So actually, I'm sorry, I just messed that. I was thinking Chromebook, which you can use it. You can use Immersive Reader on a Chromebook if the appropriate things are downloaded. Chrome is Google. So Google has their own thing. I'm not sure what it is, but Immersive Reader, which is a brand of Microsoft technology, works on Edge only when you're talking about internet search engines. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Well, we'll just go ahead and carry on because I guarantee you there will be more questions as I move, and we've got so many great things to cover today. So if there aren't more questions that you want to call out, Robin, I'll just go ahead and continue.
Continue on. Yes.
Okay. So here's a quote an educator from Argentina shared on Immersive Reader. I wanted to let you know that today a mom spoke to me and started crying. Her son was finally able to read on his own thanks to Immersive Reader. I'm currently changing the lives of so many children. We hear this feedback all the time. It's absolutely amazing when not only when educators feel empowered and feel the ability to help their students, but also when parents and students are able to share that too and increase the accessibility. So the cool thing about Immersive Reader is there are a lot of other places you're going to see it coming up and changing quite regularly. The first step for those that are our educators, if you are using Office 365 or familiar with it and you're making quizzes and tests, you can use Microsoft Forms. And you'll notice as my slide is scrolling here, Microsoft Forms has Immersive Reader embedded into it. So if you're, again, quizzes and tests for students that may have needed you to read those tests aloud, now they can do that independently by having that done in Forms. And coming soon, Immersive Reader to OneDrive. So you'll see up here in the corner where you'd open up your files, you can open in Immersive Reader. So I think that's pretty amazing. And then Immersive Reader is coming to PowerPoint, which is absolutely awesome in my mind. So again, you have the ability to think of again, students, and a lot of things right now in distance learning is coming across via slides in some level. And so Immersive Reader is being built in there and enabling just one more option to have that ear reading technology. Canvas is one of the biggest LMSs around, and Immersive Reader is also built into Canvas. So if your school uses it, just look for that Immersive Reader icon, and all of the same features that you're becoming familiar with are right there built in. And then here is just a little list of the EdTech apps and publishers that we're currently working with to have Immersive Reader embedded in. So these people already have it. And if you don't have, if your favorite EdTech app or publisher doesn't yet have Immersive Reader, make sure to tell them, and we'd be happy to work with them. Okay, so speaking about Immersive Reader, we also have an All About Immersive Reader page where you'll find all of the latest research on Immersive Reader, how-to videos, and more. And for those of you that right now are trying to write this link down, you're going to get a copy from Robin and our hosts here of my slide deck. So please sit back and relax. No need to take notes or write down links. All of these things are going to be given to you. All right, for those of you that are newish to the world of dyslexia, or for those that might want to share more information about dyslexia with their educators or educator peers, Made by Dyslexia is a global charity based out of the UK who has partnered with Microsoft to develop dyslexia awareness curriculums. These are something that are about 50 minutes each. They can be taken from the comfort of your own home, and best of all is that they're free, completely free. So these are offered in Microsoft's Educator Center, the MEC, Microsoft Educator Center, and again, Made by Dyslexia. So it's a lot of information on, what is dyslexia, how to best support it, and actually, not included in this slide, we just released part 3. So part 3 is now out. So these are really exciting and highly encourage you to check them out. Okay, this little grid here is what we affectionately call our periodic chart of Microsoft tools availability. It'll give you an idea of what features work across which platforms. So if you're having trouble with something, you might want to refer back to this to see if that feature works in what you're using. And let's go ahead and move into talking about writing. We had just taken a break for questions. And unless I hear Robin tell me like, hey, we've got some, we're going to move into writing, and then we'll pause again in a little while for some questions. So as I commonly do when working with technology, I work with my kids, and I share their examples as well. So here's an example of my middle child who's dyslexic, dysgraphic, and also has dyscalculia, and a writing assignment that he had in language arts back when he was in 7th grade. So on the left, you can see that he struggles deeply with the manual task of writing. And it isn't just the manual task, but you've also got, you know, spelling and punctuation and clarity and conciseness, all of that richness of text, all those things are difficult for him. And you can see that the longer he spends doesn't result in a better outcome. So again, extremely difficult. The example on the left took him 50 minutes, 50, of his special education class time. Now on the right, when I was, you know, telling him that I have a tool that could help him, and he didn't really believe me. But on the right, when we enabled dictation, this took him 12 minutes start to finish, including editing. And as you can see, it's a much better example of what he's capable of and how his thought process works. So he actually has a really beautifully written story here. And the really cool thing about it is that he came running up the driveway a couple of days later and was just like ear to ear smiles, like, my teacher picked me, my teacher picked me. I can tell you, as a parent of this child who struggles with every single thing academically, he is never picked. His assignments are never the example. That's not his fault. That's not his educator's fault, but he's just not able to, you know, demonstrate in the same way that his peers. And here he was clearly able to demonstrate his understanding of the assignment and write a really awesome story. So I'm going to show you how that was possible and more with our tools built into Word. I don't know why this evening I'm having a hard time remembering to switch each time with the screen share thing. So, okay, let's, give me 1 second here. I'm trying to figure out why Word doesn't come up when I screen share as an option. So good time for you to write a question in if you've got one. This is crazy. Let me see something here. There's always a, okay. Can you see Word currently, Nicholas?
You are good to go.
All right, so here we are, guys, and thanks for bearing with me. My morning started really, really early today. So here we are in Microsoft Word. This is a desktop version, and what I want to show you is under the Home tab, we're going to go all the way over to the right here, and dictation is built in. And there's a tiny little arrow. So if you drop down that list, from there you can choose the language you're dictating in. For me, it's going to be English. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on dictation. Using Microsoft Dictation, period. I am a user of dictation software, period. I haven't always had such wonderful experiences using dictation, period. In fact, I used to despise dictation software, period. Okay, that's long enough, but this is kind of me telling my truth. So you can see that dictation picked up quite easily, and it's also, the editor is marking anything that's incorrect. So dictation was the first thing my son used. And then in addition to that, how many times when we're working on something or when students are working on something, we say, read it aloud when you're done to see if it makes sense. So that's, of course, what I asked my son to do. And under the Review tab, we have the Read Aloud feature. Now, that's not Immersive Reader. It's Read Aloud. It's simply going to read it aloud.
The Amazon rainforest is an expensive forest located.
Well, that's funny. It read rainforest in the way that I misspelled it. I don't know if you guys caught that. So here's the Review tab and Read Aloud. That's just going to read aloud. Again, View tab is what gets you that immersive reader experience. Okay, so toggling between dictation and the read aloud are what enabled my son to, go back and forth and be able to really quickly create content. But then after that, as you can see here, you have editor, which is picking up on some of the things that it's flagging for correction. And so if I, under the review tab for me, you can see I've got editor right here, but also if I go over to home next to my dictation tool, I've got editor. And once I click on that, I now have the capability to utilize the editing software to more independently be able to create my content. So right here, we've got 5 spelling things that are being picked up, and let's just go ahead and take a look here. So what happens is it'll pick up our spelling and then give us some different options for words. You'll see drop down here. Actually, what I'd like to do is get it to go up to rainforest. So here we see we've got a couple of different options. If you're someone who has trouble with spelling and you get, with your typical spell checker, multiple different ways or meanings of that word or what you could have meant, it's not necessarily very helpful in enabling you to disambiguate which version of that word you meant. And so now built in here into Word in our editing software, we have context. So this rainforest is actually probably not the best word that I could use, but think about the word principle, and it's got several different ways you could spell it. So you'd get that context, and then here's a drop down. In case you're fatiguing at this point, you can have it read aloud.
Rainforest, similar to forest.
So up here, so you just click on the correction you'd like. So here's rainforest. And then we can go ahead and toggle between, all of the different options, or we could dip out of this spelling and say, well, maybe let's go look at our clarity and conciseness or punctuation conventions. So you've got all these different options, but essentially, if you enable it, it'll walk through your entire document and help you to create more effective content. So, okay, a couple other things I want to show you in Word before we part ways with Word and move on to some of the other tools is under the review tab here. We have translator built in. And I think this is really important because how many times are we working with, especially given those stats I showed in one of my early slides that we've got, half of all of our classrooms now have non-native speaking students. Very likely that they also have non-native speaking parents. How many times do we have IEP or 504 or just simple parent-teacher communication meetings where someone may have a language barrier? In Word here, we make it really easy to ensure that everyone has a voice at the table and the ability to effectively communicate, because we can just go ahead and use translator, and we could either translate just a section or the entire document. And now we have a pane popping up on the right side of the page, just like we did with our editor. And I can drop down and choose anywhere up to 65 different languages and go ahead and translate. And remember, once that's translated, if the individual needs help with reading, you've got your read aloud, or again, under the view tab, you've got immersive reader. So again, another feature enabling accessibility for all. So I'm going to go to, I've moved my toolbars around here a couple times here. I'm going to go ahead back into my PowerPoint, and we're going to talk about a couple other features. Unless, Robin, there's some questions that I need to answer. I could take a minute too.
Maybe we should. Let's see. A bit ago, there was a question about Office Lens. Office Lens, is it available on computers? And I think it was answered in the chat box that it's an app that's just for mobile devices. Is that correct?
It works on an iPad as well, but
Okay.
it doesn't work on devices. So it really is just for phones.
Okay, perfect. So for computers, then we moved on and you showed us Word. I'll let whoever unmute themselves that has a question about formatted text and how best to get it into Immersive Reader.
Okay.
Rose, is that you? Okay, I'm not sure, but they had a question about formatted text and how best to get it into Immersive Reader. I don't know.
Rose just turned her camera on. She's muted. I think she's got something to say.
Yeah,
Thank you.
she's trying to show me a document.
Sorry, I was confused about how to unmute. So I have something like this. And what happens is if I take a picture with the lens one, it tries to do a cross and it gives me gibberish because these are words too, kind of in the same line, right? And I like this source, but I'm not able to use it well.
So take a photograph of it and see if you can put it into a OneNote notebook and have and open up Immersive Reader through there. And I'll circle back with you after we look at a few more slides and you can check in with us on that.
Okay, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah. Okay. We'll get this figured out. Okay, so I want to talk to you guys about parent-teacher communication or parent-student communication. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and enable captions here on my screen. So you'll notice now we've got captions displaying in Spanish on the bottom of my PowerPoint, which is really amazing. Everyone has this option. I can also go ahead here and go to subtitle settings. I hope you guys can see that I've engaged this. So I could have my subtitles, I could move them to the top of my page, above the slide. I've got a multitude of options there. I also have options for changing the language as well. And stopping. Whoops, where'd my mouse go here? I lost it. So a lot of different options here. Whoops, here's our more settings, which is where we change our language. So again, you can change your language. Oh, that must be really confusing if someone is actually able to read Spanish, because I just sounded very gibberishy. So when presenting in PowerPoint, you can enable the captions to the start. You can also use the slideshow tab and then click present live. And the audience can join with a QR code, which is really awesome because if you have individuals that are speaking different languages, and say you've got someone who's Spanish, another individual who's Chinese, and maybe someone who's speaking Swedish, they join with a QR code and can select the language that they natively speak and works best for them. And so then even as the presenter moves through the slides, everything's synchronized across the various different devices. And audience members can send live reactions through that QR code. Again, there's 60 different languages to choose from, and audience members can also navigate the transcriptions from the previous slide and all of those great things. So this is PowerPoint live captions and subtitles. For those of you educators who want, again, some accessibility pieces for your classroom, I would highly encourage you to use PowerPoint and the live captioning available. And in addition to that, and we'll just go ahead and, in addition to that, Microsoft Translator is something that helps with that communication as well. So Translator is an app that you can get on a phone, and again, you've got a multitude of different languages, and it works on iOS, Android, Windows, PowerPoint, and the web. And what we found is that it works really well, not only for individuals who speak a different language, but also students who are deaf and hard of hearing. It's really helpful for them to have those translations and the captions as well. And if you're having parent-teacher meetings, this photograph was from a kickoff meeting at the beginning of the school year where we've got several people that are speaking different languages. And so again, Translator is something that you can use. You can type in the language that you want to have everything translated to, and it'll be on your device. And so example of a parent and an educator here using Translator to help them be able to speak. And
So,
again,
Rachel, did you just right click back in the PowerPoint to get, how did you get to that?
so right down here when I'm in PowerPoint Presenter, whoops, let's go, it's picking up. When I'm not sure if you can see where my mouse pointer is. And I've purposely made my mouse pointer very large so that people can see it when I'm presenting. Are you guys able to see it?
I can see it.
Okay, so down here is where you enable captions. So these things are just slightly, like you don't really see them unless I hover over them, but this one is what enables captions. I click on that. Oops, let's do it again. So now it's starting because I clicked on it. But if I just go on my slide and right click, this is where I have then subtitle settings and then the more settings so I can change my language. So it's 2 clicks. You can also set it up ahead of time, which is what that, here, let me go back a couple slides for you guys. You can also set it up ahead of time with that QR code. So you're going to the slideshow tab of your PowerPoint and then clicking on Present Live, and that's the other way that you can use it and get that QR code ahead of time to give to everyone. All right, so I need to skip ahead a few slides, and the best way for me to do that is use this view. So we talked about Translator and parent-teacher communication, and just the general help that, it's funny, this our Zoom photos and toolbar keeps getting in my way to keep moving it. In general, just talking about enabling captioning and more effective communication. So here we have Teams. A lot of you through distance learning that we've been doing for the past year-ish have been more familiar with technology than you ever have been before via Zoom or GoToWebinar or Teams. So Teams has built in a number of super awesome things. If you're not familiar with it, I encourage you to check out some of the demos that I'll have linked up in my slide deck here on Teams. But we also have captioning available in Teams. So you go to the ellipses right here on the toolbar and you turn on live captioning. So what's really great about this is, you know, you as the user can turn that on, and not everyone has to see that. So again, it's a personal preference. Maybe you don't want people to know that you prefer to have captioning. And so that's kind of a personal choice, and you have the ability to do it on your own. All right, so in terms of other accessibility in Teams, of course, we have Immersive Reader built in, and it's awesome to have that tool built in for educators and students. So we've got, in addition to Immersive Reader, you've got inline translation, live captioning, which you just saw on the previous slide. We also got accessibility checker and inclusive math, as well as transcript generator. So let's show you. Okay, we'll do this this feedback quickly, and then I'm going to show you some other really cool stuff. I severely underestimated that the Translator app the impact that the Translator app would have on district leaders, newcomer students, and their parents in one short year, and how it would charge up our plans for family engagement in the upcoming year. So this is a district leader in San Diego, California. It's awesome for us to hear feedback from, you know, from our users. And so I want to talk about math. You might have heard me mention something about math just a couple minutes ago when I was in that Teams slide. And I'm going to check my timing here. Ooh, we're coming up really close. Do I have the ability or permission to go over by a few minutes with this gang?
You sure do. Yes.
Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do instead of hanging out here in PowerPoint forever, I'm going to show you this slide and encourage you to get the free math app. It's here, you're seeing it right here. It's free math app for iOS and Android. And then I'm going to go ahead into OneNote and show you how the math app works in OneNote. And it's going to work almost the same way in almost exactly the same way when you're using it on an iOS or Android. Okay. So let's go out of PowerPoint. And Nick, you just let me know if we're not following to OneNote here. I'm in OneNote. We're looking at my math notebook in OneNote. So what I really like, again, about the OneNote notebook is there's a multitude of ways for inputs. You can type things in. If you have a touch screen device, you can, utilize input text in that way. I can use a stylus or any of the drawing tools. And then we also have dictation. So I think that enables a variety of ways for people to do what they need to do. Here I've got an equation, and what I'm going to do is go up under the draw tab and grab this lasso. And I'm using a stylus. You don't have to use a stylus. You could use your, what's available to you on your device, or you could use the draw tool as well. So what I need to do is highlight my equation, and then again, we're still under the draw tab, and we're going to head all the way over here to math. And we are going to check out our math pane. So now we have the ability to select an action based on the equation. In this case, solving for X is our only option. And as an individual who struggles with dyscalculia myself, I think it's really great to solve for X and get an answer. But more importantly for me, I don't remember the order of operations when working through equations. I don't understand the sequences. I frequently forget those. So why I love these math tools is it gives us the ability to understand the steps in solving. And so here you'll see the steps, but check this out. There's our friend Immersive Reader. And so, maybe I am a non-native speaker and I need to translate the language in my math equation here. Then I would just go ahead over here to my reading preferences and translate. Or maybe I'm fatiguing right now and having a hard time because I'm a struggling reader or dyslexic. And so again, I could push the play button and have this read aloud. What I also like is that BoardMaker is now putting photographs to some of these terms, which again, as an individual who does struggle with dyscalculia, this is huge for me. So I love these tools that are built in here that again enable individuals to gain in their independence. Let's go ahead and look at our graph. So here I have an equation that I've written. Again, I need to go ahead and circle my equation. All right, and over to the math. So now we're going to select an action. Whoops. I want to point this out. I have the ability to fix it in case it hasn't correctly picked up, how I wrote the equation, and I also have the ability to ink to math. So if I don't want it in handwriting, I can go ahead and change that to text. Everything's fine here, so I'm going to select my action, which is graphing. And so here we now have this lovely graph with great key features that we can show. And so I can show my zeros. I can go ahead and scroll down here and show the y-intercept. And you'll notice those are on the graph. And anywhere I hover, I get the coordinates. I can also insert the graph on the page to show my work and my mastery of the assignment. So that's our graphing tool. And then this next one actually is probably my favorite. Again, because I struggled with dyscalculia, and as a student, what I benefited from was either slower teaching because I processed the math at a much slower pace, or those reteaching moments because again, I couldn't remember the order of operations. So with our inking replay, you can help your students to be able to have those reteaching moments by we're going to go to our view tab and we're going to go over here to replay. And then I'm going to be able to select the area of text I want replayed. So again, imagine you've got a notebook you're you're doing with your students and equations. So I'm going to go ahead and hit replay. And now this just goes through this again for me. So, or what if you're an educator and your students have, turned in their assignments and you're wondering, how did they get to that answer? So again, inking replay is under the view tab here and the replay button. Okay, so that is our math tools. And you guys are going to laugh. And I'm just going to go ahead and tell you something and let you go ahead and laugh and get it over with. I have a dog that's trapped in the garage underneath me, and that's why he's barking. So I'm going to need to let him, I don't know how he did it, but I have 3 kids and something tells me someone did it. And if I don't let him out of there, he's going to continue while we try to wrap things up. So I'm just going to go let him out of his trapped moment. So go ahead and queue up your questions. We've got a few more things to just talk about before we wrap up. I'll be right back.
So Robin, I figured I'd just hop on real quick. I didn't want to interrupt Rachel while she's doing her thing, but I do want to say, Dana, whoever told you that a child is too young for assistive technology is wrong. There's no other way about that. There's no age, young or old, that assistive technology applies to individuals. I saw another thing in here about the translation. It's getting a lot better. And one of the things about these services and these tools that exist, the more we use them, even though they're not the best, the better they're going to get. Pretty much everything you use online or that is going to be connected to an algorithm, right? Everything we do is tracked. And so being able to use this stuff is going to eventually improve the services that we're getting. Even though it's not the best right now, it might not be the best or might not be 100% correct. Machine learning is growing tremendously. And so the more we can use these things, the better it's going to turn out. So to answer regarding the translation, I guarantee you it's 10 times better than it was a year ago when I first found out about this.
That's awesome. Thanks for adding that, Nick. That's so important. And I totally agree. That translation has gotten quite a bit better. And I thought it was pretty awesome to begin with. So thank you guys for understanding. I tell you, all of this work from home, learn from home stuff is pretty crazy. And well, I'm glad I went to let the dog in because it turned out he had opened our back door so the downstairs was freezing. So that's how he got himself out there. He kind of broke through the door. And I shouldn't have blamed it on my children. Well, I have just a couple more things for you. And these are called our short, sweet, interactive guides. And essentially everything broken out, just like we learned today, but in a web-based learning guide for you to take from the comfort of your own home. And this is something that's, it's click through. So you learn as you're going, and it'll literally tell you, click on the play button on Immersive Reader. So it'll walk you through in a way that you're doing it and learning it at the same time. So I'd highly encourage you to check those out. And then next up, again, in education, interactive demos, including things with Microsoft Teams. So if you want to get to know Microsoft Teams for any reason, check out these interactive demos as well. And next up, for any of you who don't know who Mike Tholfsen is, I work with him, and he has created a YouTube page for all sorts of things, accessibility and Microsoft, but he's got an inclusive classroom playlist on YouTube here. So all of the things and more that we covered in very short little 2 to 4 minute video clips. So check it out, follow him. You'll find all kinds of great learnings through his YouTube and more. And then for those of you that are in the education field, and especially special education. Microsoft's response last year to COVID and the variety of needs educators and students had was to create a specific accessibility page for individuals who learn differently. So whether it's reading, spelling, and math, or I'm sorry, reading, writing, and math, or speech, language, and communication, or mobility, mental health, or vision, all of those things can be found under this page here. And they're done by category. So that helps you be able to zero in on the specific tools that you're looking for. So those are the links that I have for you to share at the end. And I guess I would like to leave you guys with a quote from Marlee Matlin, who was a speaker at Microsoft. She's an award-winning actress for her work in Children of a Lesser God, The Children of a Lesser God, and she said that no one should have to ask for access. It should just be there. I couldn't agree with her more, but I would also go on to say that access shouldn't be a members-only club for those who can afford it. And with the tools that Microsoft and other technologies are creating today, accessibility is something that anyone can have, and we all should ensure that everyone has accessibility. Okay, so I have, there we go, we did it in just about an hour. So I am open to questions. I want to hear, did Rose get her information into OneNote and Immersive Reader enabled?
Thank you so much, Rachel. That was really great information for me. Very overwhelming. It's a lot. I feel like I have a lot to learn, but you're talking to a technically challenged girl here. So
right now
this is Robin.
Oh, it is a lot to learn, but you would be surprised at how quick it is when you just sit down and give a couple of them a try. But also maybe those interactive guides would be a great help if you're feeling overwhelmed. Break it out by just the reading one and just the writing one. Leave the math and communication till later.
Right.
And
I wanted to, when you stepped away for just a minute, I appreciate your real life story too, by the way. All of us working from home and juggling all of it. But Nick, thank you for jumping on and kind of filling that minute. I needed, there's a lot of people here in Idaho that really need your support. And I appreciated you being that voice that I've said, you backing that assistive technology, there isn't an age that's too young. If there's a resource out there that can support a kiddo in the classroom, if your child is qualified for special education, they have qualified for assistive technology support. So that is a resource that you have the right as a parent to ask for an AT evaluation to be part of your IEP. And Nick Stallings is available to us as a resource on how to get some of those tools into the hands of our educators. Is that right, Nick?
Correct. Yes. So I can, we're here to help everyone. We have multiple approaches. We can do things. I'm paid through SESTA, so Special Education Support and State Technical Assistance. And what I do is I work hand in hand with paras and teachers to help them get the assistive technology that they need or train them or help them find something for a student. But I also work with families because as the Idaho Assistive Technology Project, we are available to any Idahoan free of charge. Doesn't matter who you are, what you're looking for, we are here to help. And so I can do it from two facets. I can train families, I can also train teachers. We are here to help all things assistive technology. So yes.